Welcome into our overtime segment here on SportsSource.tv. We appreciate you joining us. Joined by Josh Ward and Jimmy Himes, who will be heading down to, well, depending on when you watch this, they will be heading down to Hoover. They're in Hoover. They have returned from Hoover. Either way, these guys will be covering the SEC Media Days from Hoover. And Bob Hodge is right here. He will not be covering the SEC
But
Media
I just
Days
bought a Hoover, oddly enough. So there you go.
All right, very good. We're going to talk today about Butch Jones is also going to be at Hoover. How much will he be grilled by the press and why? What advice would we give him? We'll talk about that in a second, but first I want to tell you this segment brought to you by Blue Smoke Cigar. You see it right there on my desk. You see the website. It is a club. It is a lounge. Leather seating, TVs all over the place, card tables, a card room, golf simulators, private room for small meetings, lockers for your favorite cigars, and a humidor filled with the best boutique cigar brands in America and around the world. There is nobody better in terms of cigar aficionado friendliness than Blue Smoke Cigar. I've known these guys from their Smokin' Joe's days for 15 years now. Mike Hicks and his crew. It's a really good place. A lot of people go down there and enjoy it. Like I say, go down there and watch TV, go down there and play cards, go down there and take advantage of the golf simulators, all while enjoying a stogie. Blue Smoke Cigar. Okay. Butch Jones. John Adams wrote about it this week, and I thought he was correct, that Butch Jones is probably the guy most likely to draw a huge crowd from the media because he is, as John put it, the clown prince of the catchphrase. I think there will be a lot of media members at SEC Media Days hoping, oh, please give us something like 5-star heart, or would it be too much to throw us a Champions of Life? How much do you think, because look around the SEC, and that's part of it, you don't have Steve Spurrier around anymore. So, Jimmy, you've covered more of these than anybody here at the desk. How much do you think Butch Jones is going to be kind of one of the guys who's center of attention this week?
A lot. That particular day, it's Arkansas with Brett Bielema, who, by the way, is a really good quote.
Yeah.
And then Ed Orgeron is a good quote if you can understand what he says. So you'll have those two that basically will be competing for the attention of the day. And I think there'll be a lot of focus on Butch Jones, and I do think there'll be people curious, what is he going to say? How's he going to phrase this? Is he going to come up with another, what was it in the spring, Dat?
Yeah, Dat.
So who dat, talking about beating the balls. But I do think there'll be some of that, and there'll be some people that'll be taking some shots at him. And he's become a target with a lot of folks, I think, in the media. He could help himself with the way he handles some things at press conferences, but I'm not sure.
Let's get to that in a second. That'll be part two, what advice we might give him. Thoughts, Josh, on what he might expect at media days? I mean, do you think he goes in guarded this time because of that, or do you think he is who he is?
I would think that Butch Jones goes in guarded and similar maybe to the spring meetings down in Destin several weeks ago when was kind of defending his program, and I think that might just be part of the conversation as well. As Tennessee is taking criticism based on the way last year's regular season ended, then you have the defense side from Tennessee, and Butch Jones might take that approach. I wonder what you guys think, but I wonder, does it help that Bielema and Ed Orgeron are there the same day in terms of all the headlines nationally? It kind of gets split up. If Bielema says something funny, if Orgeron says something funny, maybe there's not as much attention.
And
on Butch Jones. I don't know.
Bielema is one of the few guys in the SEC who still has, he and Malzahn have gone back and forth a few times. You can get under his skin. You've seen him at media days. He'll bow up a little bit. There were times when he wasn't even in the room, didn't get a quote. He said, well, so-and-so said in the other room this or that, and he kind of gets his dander up over it. So that could help you. And I think Orgeron's going to be brash. He'll go down there and promise they're going to win the national championship, and he'll do it in that voice.
And there was a little hot seat talk with Bielema as well at Arkansas.
And Jeff Long tried to put that out. The AD down there tried to quell that, but that could come up as well. Let me ask you, Bob. We know who Butch Jones is. In terms of the narrative has become he's defensive. Well, what are you supposed to do? I mean, I've pointed out on this show, show me the coach who doesn't take up for his program, and that'll be the first one I've ever seen. They all defend their. Saban is a thin-skinned, defensive little man. If you watch his press conferences, you will know that. This idea that Jones is the only one who does it is ridiculous. That said, are the odds 100% that he comes back and they're going to be Tennessee fans ticked off that he was defensive or he used some catchphrase? I mean,
Oh, it's 100%. There'll be some Tennessee fans ticked off. It doesn't matter what he does. He can go down there. If I'm Butch Jones, you know, the catchphrases that he's used have been at the times he has used them.
The two that got him in trouble.
The two
by
that
the
got
time,
him in
yeah.
trouble, the 5-star Hearts and the Champions of Life, came at just horrible times.
Right.
That's one thing about this preseason media stuff. Really, it's not a horrible time if you're going to use a cliche or a catchphrase or say something like that. You can have worse times. It's not going to be coming after a horrible loss. It's not going to be coming after a disappointing recruiting day. So I don't think that stuff will be as big. I think he just needs, I would be defensive too if I was him. You've came in, you've improved things, you've got it worlds better than it was 4 years ago, and yet people are beating you up over it. But I just think in this situation, a lot of media, they're going to run with something, but I just don't see how it could be as big as 5-star Hearts or Champions of Life because of the days and those situations.
Yeah, well, I agree with your point, except for one thing. You're going to have every sports media guy in the country there this week. So if he says something goofy, it's everywhere because they're all going to be there with their microphones and their television cameras.
And they will be waiting for it.
And they will be waiting for it, hoping they can get it.
And I think the odds are pretty good he'll say something kind of goofy. I mean, you know, but
and
once
that's what
again, it's just gonna happen.
And that's what I was getting at. I think at this point, he can't say anything that someone isn't going to twist into being
Yes.
stupid. Whether it's stupid or not, I think people are going to take things as stupid. The people that don't like Butch Jones, let's say that's 20% of the fan base. They didn't like him when they hired him. They weren't going to like him no matter what he did, and they hate him now. That group will be sitting there watching his press conference, phones ready to tweet, hoping he says something backwards that they can
But
spin into.
we may be sitting here this time next week, and I'd be totally wrong. I do not see any way he could say anything that would come across as bad as Champions of Life after losing to Vanderbilt
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's-
and not going to the
Okay.
Sugar Bowl. I just don't see how that's possible. And if it is, Lord help him.
What advice do you give him? And I look, you know my take. I've given advice on this show to him many times, and that is cold shoulder. Just yes, no, thank you, goodbye. Do your talking to the recruits and the recruits' families, because he can do that. There's no question he can do that. But to the media, and it's not good for our business, but to the media, if I were John Curry, if I were his boss, I'd say, Butch, here are 15 tapes of Bill Belichick. Watch them and mimic them. I want grunts, yeses, nos, leave after 5 minutes. Be kind of petulant.
I think it's easier to do when you won Super Bowls. I really do.
Maybe.
Or like Saban after what he did.
But how could it be any worse for Butch Jones if he just goes there and gives yes, no answers this week?
You're talking about right now.
Yeah. This week, I
Well,
would say,
I think it would be better. You say how could it be worse? I think it'd be better if he can defend a lot of the things that he's done. There've been a lot of good things. He's going to point out Tennessee's won 15 of its last 19. But don't go down there and act like the East Division's not a goal. That's when he made some of his comments about, so you've lost the chance to win the East Division. It's like, we never talked about it, you did. Well,
Right.
no, your players did talk about it.
you
So-
handed out wristbands saying own it. Yeah.
and your quarterback said, our goal is to get back to Tampa. What's in Tampa? National championship game. So you can say, we've done all this, but you know what? We haven't reached our goal. Our goal is to win the East Division. Our goal is to win the SEC, and we still have steps to take. I think that would help him immeasurably. And he can still point out the good things he's done, but don't act like you've already arrived. And some of that comes across like he has.
But in Destin this year at the SEC meetings, he said we didn't win the East and that was disappointing to us. He opened up and said it, and we sat here and said, well, it's not good enough, it's too late. So would it help him to say that same thing? And it's even later
I
now,
think
it's
it
in
would.
July.
But here's where he hurt himself in Destin. He said, we've competed for a championship every year I've been
Yeah.
at Tennessee.
Yeah.
No, you haven't.
Let's-
So make sure whatever you say is factual. Now, the audience in Destin was 28 people. This is going to be 1,228. So I think he could still say that same thing. Would some people say it's too late? Probably.
Okay.
But I still think that could overall help him, my opinion.
My view on him is this. He's either talking and saying too much, or you got him saying yes or no. I don't think there's any talk and say the right things. I don't think he's that guy. Some guys can talk and not ever say anything that you like. They're just jerks.
You know, and
Me,
if
for
you're
example.
right about that, that's such a huge problem. I mean, because
Unless
I
you're
like
winning
coaches.
big. If
Me
you're
and
winning
you,
big,
me and
who
you
cares?
disagree with this. I like coaches that answer the questions and come out there because
Yeah, I
once
don't
again, this is entertainment. That's what it is. We're not talking about anything other than entertainment. And if your coach has the gravitas of a Belichick or a Saban, he can get by with the grunts and the non-answers and everything. But most coaches, I don't think I agree with Jimmy. Most coaches cannot get by with that. I think they've got to talk to the media. But if you're right, then that is a problem. That if he either is going to grunt and that's going to bite him in the butt, or he's going to talk and then anything he says.
He's going to get ripped either way, is the way I view it. And I wouldn't put bullets in your gun, basically. I'm not going to give you a quote
wanna have a
you
gun.
can beat me over the head with for the next 6 months. If you want to say he was standoffish and didn't say anything, well, that puts him down there with half the other coaches in the conference. There's a lot of guys that don't say anything. It's a pretty dull group in the conference right now. I don't think it would stand out if he just gave a much shorter deal, didn't say very much, just kind of very simple answers. I don't think he would stand out as the lone wolf. He could stand out in the other direction as being Captain Catchphrase, who says something that everyone goes, aha, finally. I think that could burn him more than the other way. That's just me. Josh, your thoughts. What advice would you give to Butch Jones going to Hoover?
Well, my first piece of advice, which I'm sure would not be taken, would be try to add a little levity. I mean, imagine if he got up on in the main stage, the huge conference room with all kinds of media, and said something like, "It's great to be here with you at this beautiful 5-star hotel," and just paused. And the media laughs and they tweet out something, hey, a little humor, but that's not going to happen. So, yeah. So there's my advice. That's not going to work. So I would say, you've won 15 out of 19 games. Don't say that, because people have heard it over and over and over again. And I would say back-to-back top 25 seasons. That one works. I would say, what we did the last couple of years is really good, but it's not good enough.
It's
so
a good foundation.
we made changes with our staff. We're doing really well on the recruiting trail. We are bringing in recruits inside the state of Tennessee, and we are continuing to build to an even higher level in the future. I would make it about what you're going to do moving forward, not what you have done, because everybody knows the record, everybody knows the score. Don't try to twist it when people have already decided what has happened.
Well,
Three
see that-
balls in a row.
But here's the problem, though. If you're him and you say everybody knows the record, they're the ones twisting it. There are a lot of people, he's a terrible coach.
Well,
He'll be
don't
the
play the
first guy
twisting
fired.
game.
And it's like, wait a second, 9-4 the last 2 years. I turned a program around. So if you're him, that's where I would have my trouble standing and biting my tongue, is if people are sitting there, well, you've clearly stumbled and had a problem. No, we haven't. So you do defend yourself, and then they go, aha, you're defensive. I once dated somebody who used to do that all the time. It would be, I'm going to attack you, and then I would respond, and when you responded, you're being defensive, means you're guilty.
Wow, and I ended up marrying her.
Was it the same woman?
So, if I'm Butch Jones, that
Just don't play the twisting game. That's why I said, mention back-to-back top 25 season. That's good. That's something that matters.
Just be accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We ended the.
did he say he's competed for championships every year since he's been at Tennessee? I didn't remember him getting that specific. I thought he said we've competed for championships.
Every year.
Oh, okay. If he said every year, then that's a lie.
He was including
It
Tennessee
wasn't.
State.
It wasn't accurate. Yeah. So don't go down that road.
I didn't remember the every year part, but you were the one getting the interview, so I'll defer to you since you were there.
So that's what I was saying. But I agree with what Josh is saying. I mean, you can point out some of the things you've done well.
Yeah.
I think we don't see this the same, apparently. But I would point out the things that I've done well, but I would say it's not good enough, and our goal is still to go and do this and that, which is the same thing Josh is saying. So I think you're fine with that.
I think you are too if you have
I wouldn't-
someone
Go ahead.
if you had someone who can deliver that message.
Well, that's part of the issue.
That's the issue. I don't look.
That's why my idea of a joke
don't
is just
send
it's
it.
not going to work. It's not going to work.
Again, go
Just
back to the
stay
former
home.
thing and just have the
Just have
box.
a mic.
Just have it on speakerphone.
I was subpoenaed, by the way, right before this meeting. I'm sending Brady Hoke.
Well, and a funny thing about just college athletics, but at Tennessee in this case, is today a lot of the issue is that they're so careful. Like this week, they're going to be careful about coaching players up on what to say. Don't say this. Here's the message we want out. And I would say Tennessee players have been much better in front of the media. The public relations staff, their concern has not been with, for the most part, what players would say. It's been what the head coach would say.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
I don't know how correctable that is.
I guess the way I view it is if I've got a quarterback who's a better runner than passer, he just can't throw to save his life, then I'm going to stop having him throw. We're just going to run with this guy. I see Jones as sort of the same thing. I don't think all of a sudden he's now going to become the world's greatest speaker who will stay on message and get his point across with humor. I just don't see it happening. So for me, it's time to say, let's let him do what he can do, and let's limit the possible errors. He's not going to do that. He's going to go down there and he'll do his usual spiel, and he'll be mocked mercilessly for his catchphrases. We all know it's coming. And there will be that group here that hates him that will take something he says and spin it or twist it. I think it'll be, hope I'm wrong, but my guess is we're going to be talking next Sunday about negative
catchphrase.
reaction nationally or locally to something he said.
Well, you asked our advice, and I tried to give it.
Right,
That
no.
was my advice.
No,
was
that's-
and you, like, I think you're probably right, because if he hasn't done it by now, it's kind of hard to think that he would. But if I'm in his corner and I'm advising him, this is what I would tell him, this is what I think you ought to do.
It's, I guess the way I look at it, it's a little like back during the presidential race, you had all these people trying to get Trump. And they're like, okay, we got to do the teleprompter, we got to do this, got to do this. And finally they said, nah, to hell with it, let Trump be Trump. That, because Trump couldn't do the other thing.
Yeah.
He's better just doing this. Just go willy-nilly, man, have at it. Butch would be the exact opposite. I would want him on the teleprompter, and I would say, do not just go willy-nilly. Don't say what's on the top
Put
of
an
your head.
earpiece in his ear and have somebody sitting there answering the questions for him.
Exactly, yes.
No, I am not on the hot seat.
Well, I wonder how much grief he's going to get, though, from the regional media, because there are so many people out there who think he is the hottest seat in the conference. I mean, I think Barrett Sallee a week or two ago came out and said that he'll be the first SEC coach fired.
See, I just don't see
I
that.
don't see that either.
I just don't
think,
see it.
I think Barrett Salee's off by about 180 degrees there, but
What's interesting, too, from Butch's perspective, he thinks he gets more respect from national media than local media. He does. I don't think that's accurate, but he does.
I actually
Yeah.
think Gus Malzahn's in bigger danger of getting fired than Butch Jones, because the expectations are so high for them.
agreed.
And he's been
So if he has a
disappointing
bad
for
year-
the last couple of years, so I can
Yeah,
see even
I think Kevin Sumlin.
Kevin Sumlin. No.
With the
Yeah,
money
but-
they gave him.
Hugh
And the fact that
Freeze
his
and-
AD did not hide the
Well,
fact
Hugh
that
Freeze,
he was here.
Hugh Freeze doesn't
He
count.
doesn't count. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But you can look at a guy like Brett Bielema, who's done less than Butch Jones.
At
He ju-
Arkansas. That's
yeah,
right.
at
That's
Arkansas,
right.
he should be the first one gone if it's between Jones or Bielema. And his AD came out and said, he's our guy. I know our fans don't want to hear that it's more than wins and losses, but it's about more than wins and losses. But I think, now that's where you get into, that's where Butch has an issue. I think he needs to stop listening to us. I think he would be better off if he stopped listening to the local media. Because just as there are some fans out there who twist anything he says, I forget what it was, a few weeks ago, it was after the draft, Mike Tomlin made a comment in a 2-minute piece about how Josh Dobbs says he's looking forward to getting coached on a regular
Yeah.
basis.
Yep,
And somebody
yep,
cut that down just to that 7 seconds and said, aha, see, he didn't get coached here. Okay, you got people who do that kind of thing. But I think you also have him twisting what the media is saying. I think he takes, that's where I think he's too thin-skinned, personally.
Well, he is.
About the media stuff that, not necessarily the fan stuff. I think it's the media stuff that gets under his skin, because I've been told by people over there that we did a segment a few weeks back, months ago, that we asked the question, is Butch Jones a good coach? Because I was tired of people saying, oh, he's a terrible coach. So we simply put up his record. It's like, folks, you may not like him. He may not be a great coach, but you can't say he's a terrible coach. He's the complete opposite of a terrible coach.
I think he's proven that he's a good coach.
Right.
I don't know how you argue otherwise.
But the thing is, that segment was done to say, stop calling him a terrible coach. He's a good coach. It was taken over on the hallowed hill there. How dare you even bring it up that he might not be a good coach? It's like, you missed the point. But look at it, and I was told that upset some folks over there. I think that's where they get in trouble, is listening and
Agreed.
maybe interpreting what's
The
going
old
on.
rabbit ears.
Yeah.
I think they put all media in the same boat too, and you're in a day and age where there's some media I don't even consider media that's out there, and you
Well, that's, a
That's
danger.
probably part of the issue
That's-
too. And
yeah.
What'd you say, Jimmy, that maybe Butch thinks that the national media has treated him more fairly? Or,
Yes.
yeah, I would tell
Than
him
local
to
media.
check that again.
yeah. All right, interesting stuff. We'll see where we are next Sunday in terms of whether or not we're still talking about Butch Jones. You want to put some money on whether or not we're talking about next week? Because I'm the producer. I can
Well,
make
he's
sure.
I was about,
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
about to
don't make
say,
that
yeah,
bet.
Jimmy wants to bet a lot.
Media day prop bets. I like this idea.
Josh, Jimmy, Bob, thank you all very much. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it. We'll see you next Sunday at 11 o'clock on WATE 6.